I've never wet the bed from being too drunk. I have thrown up in my sleep. It's like, oh no, no, no. The human body is an exceptionally complex piece of equipment. Even now, after thousands of years of research, there are still certain parts that we don't fully understand. Do we really count stuff as research when it was like over 100 years ago? Because I feel like the research was like pretty sketchy. They were like, yeah, let's put these, what are they called? The things that suck your blood? Leeches on people and see what happens. I don't feel that was really research. It was just like people fucking around. Like alchemy, but with people.
Dad, something doesn't feel right.
It's Dave who wrote this, by the way. I'm Simon, I read it. That's how we do this show. It's different. Even things about which we thought we had a fairly extensive knowledge have an annoying habit of surprising us with new, as yet undiscovered information. This constant evolution of medical knowledge probably goes some way to explaining why so many people are so remarkably ill-informed about the body they live in. In today's episode, we shall take a look at some of these medical facts which people believe in, but are completely untrue. And play a game with me, dear audience. I have not read this before. That's the format. You've not seen this before because that's how YouTube works, unless you're watching this again, in which case I wonder what you're doing with your life. But we'll, see how many you know. See how many you actually knew were untrue. Blind people have superior hearing. I think this is true, but apparently it's not. I mean, I don't think that they have literally superior hearing. I just think they're more attuned to hearing. Like, because they don't have all the sensory input from the eyes, they're like much more aware of sounds, right? That's my take on it. If I may, I'd like to take this opportunity to answer a question that Simon actually asked in a previous video. Okay, actually, it's not just Simon. I would not be exaggerating if I said that barely a week goes by when somebody does not ask me a variation on this question. Dave is blind, by the way, if you're new here, who wrote this script. So, is Hollywood to be believed? Does losing your sight suddenly open you up to a heretofore unimaginable level of auditory excellence? Well, no, it doesn't. So why is it that blind people seem to be able to perform seemingly impossible feats of hearing? Feats of hearing that their sighted inferiors can only dream of. The answer is in fact fairly simple. If you have a fully functional set of senses, then on a day-to-day basis, sight is going to be the most useful when it comes to reading, finding food, not getting mowed down by an electric car, etc. Because people come to rely so heavily on their sight, they don't really bother to fully develop their other senses. The ability to accurately locate a dropped coin purely by subconsciously noting the last place it stopped making noise, safely fill a cup with boiling water by recognizing the change in sound as the level reaches the top. What? Oh yeah, it does. Oh, I never thought about that. Because I see. Oh shit.
I'm blind, Carl, not stupid.
Just before we continue today, let me share something with you that can make your online experience as smooth as butter. Look, we've all been there. You're worried about your online privacy, your online security, but don't worry, I've got the perfect solution for you, and that, of course, is Surfshark VPN. Look, imagine a world where you can protect all of your internet activity with just a single click, or if you're on a tablet or a phone, just a tap. It's not just a dream. It could be your reality with Surfshark. And here's the best part. It's incredibly easy to use. You just snap your fingers and you are shielded from prying eyes. Surfshark lets you virtually travel the world with just a tap. Access blocked websites, get amazing deals on online shopping, and unlock different content libraries. Just recently, I got Disney Plus. And I was like, I heard a show that I loved back in the day called Boston Legal was on Disney Plus. And I go on there, it's not on there. Fire up my Surfshark VPN, hop on over to the UK, where it is in the library, and bada bing, bada boom. Now, I am watching Boston Legal on Disney Plus. Thank you, Surfshark. Monitor your data, stay virus-free, hide from search engines, and get real-time breach alerts. They've got 3,200 servers worldwide, top-grade encryption, and no activity logs policy. They have got your back. And one subscription covers all of your devices, unlimited. Share it with friends and enjoy a secure online life for less than a piece of gum. Plus, if you use the promo code BLAZE, you get an extra 3 months for free. That's nice, isn't it? So whether you are a globetrotter or just chilling at your favorite cafe, Surfshark has got you covered. Use the promo code BLAZE for that 3-month bonus. Just head to surfshark.deals/blaze and level up your online game. And now back to today's video. Or accurately punch someone based on the way that any available ambient sound bounces back from their body is one that anybody can develop. Let me just read that again. Or accurately punch someone based on the way that any available ambient sound bounces back from their body. Dave, are you Daredevil? What the f***? look. But because these things can more easily be achieved by simply looking, if you don't have to, well, why would you? I'll tell you why, because sometimes it's dark. In my experience, at least, the majority of fully sighted people suddenly become considerably less confident in the dark. To my mind, this is entirely unnecessary. My fully sighted 6-year-old child can do all of the things I listed above and more simply because he chose to take it upon himself to learn alternative ways of doing things. Of course, having me around to study probably helps, but if he can do it, so can you. Sticking with this theme for a moment, the same thing applies with the sense of touch. I've lost count of the number of times that I've been paying for something in a shop and the person behind the counter has asked how I know which coin is which. The answer, which I genuinely thought was obvious to anyone until I carried out some tests on my customers when I worked behind the bar, is that all the coins are different shapes. Yeah, hold on.
"75 years later."
Let's play a game.
All right. 5 crowns. 2 crowns. $5 crowns. Hey, it was bigger than the last one. 2 crowns. Yes! What the fuck is this? This is... I don't think this is... Did I pick up some money that's not check money? I don't recognize this at all. It's the wrong size. Yeah, it's a euro! It's a euro! 10 crowns. Easy. Boom. 5 crowns. Yes. Look, we're not going to sit here and count money all day. It's very boring, except for me. I find it extremely fun. So what did I do? I didn't do very well, did I? I'd be taken advantage of. After getting 10 customers to sort through their own pocket change, scroll teleprompter please, and identify each coin while blindfolded, I was forced to conclude that the same sight-dependent issue that I previously mentioned applies to touch as well. Only about 3 of the 10 admittedly slightly tipsy customers were able to accurately identify all of the coins in their pockets. Come on, sighted people, do better. If you have a concussion, you should not go to sleep. Oh, a good question. I don't think I've ever thought about this one particularly much. I've never been concussed, but I guess I did believe this. I did hear that you shouldn't go to sleep because then you might not wake up again or some such. So yeah, I've also been taken in by this one. I'll give myself a half point on the first one because, like, I did kind of know that blind people don't biologically have better hearing. They're just better at using the hearing. This particular old wives' tale has been circulating for decades now. Unfortunately, it's most commonly spread by old wives, not doctors. Before I get eviscerated in the comments, I'm not for a moment suggesting that an old wife cannot be a doctor. Wasn't what you heard, Dave, but that's the world we live in. Just that the majority of old wives are not doctors. I was first subjected to this piece of medical flim-flam by my mother in about 1998. At that time, she was not an old wife, but I am pleased to report that she has now become one. After being involved in a cycling incident and being diagnosed with a mild concussion by visiting a doctor, Dave, we just spent the last entry talking about how you were blind. How are you in a cycling accident, Dave? Yes, boys and girls, there was a time when the doctor would actually come to your house, and not just in that song about Mrs. Polly and her doll. I was advised, quite simply, to get some rest. My doctor, if I pay him more, like I have like a... It's not like, it's still like, because we have healthcare in Europe, but I pay like a slightly larger amount of money every year to have like whatever this like fancier, like it's like a layer on top of the doctors. So I don't have to go to the hospital and like wait in a queue. It's like, because we have like semi-private health insurance and some is not in Europe. So it's like, but one of their services, I've never used it, is if you don't want to go to the doctor, they will come to you. You just have to pay them a lot of money. And that's kind of awesome. Unfortunately, given that my mother was a proponent of the theory, which states that anybody who has a concussion and falls asleep is suffering from terminal brain damage, I found that getting the necessary rest was difficult indeed. In fact, every time I drifted off, I was shaken awake and asked if I was all right. So why do people believe this? According to Dr. Rachel Vreeman, co-author of Don't Swallow Your Gum, Myths and Half-Truths and Outright Lies About Your Body and Health, anyone who may have a concussion concussion should seek medical attention, but the condition is rarely severe or life-threatening. Warnings that people may need to stay awake after incurring a concussion most likely grew out of a misunderstanding about a particular type of head injury, one that involves brain bleeding and that causes people to have a lucid period followed by a coma or even death. But this is very uncommon and doesn't pertain to people with normal concussions. So there you have it. As long as you have been diagnosed with a mild to moderate concussion by a competent medical professional, the best thing you could do is rest. Seeing as how one of the most restful things you can do is sleep, if you happen to be looking after somebody who has had a concussion, then please don't wake them up every 30 minutes to check on them. Not only is it not helpful, it's also irritating. You can't get pregnant on your periods. Wait, I know this one's false. You can, because without being too gross about it, the baby juice stays inside for a while, and that can coincide with the right timing after the period. Before is better. Like, you've got less of a chance, right? I think that one's true.
Quick, lads. This lady needs our help, and fast. She can feel the cooling and soothing already.
Being a member of approximately 50% of the human race not in possession of female reproductive organs, I'm the first to admit that I'm by no means an expert in this field. In fact, until I was about 19 years old, I too believed that women could not get pregnant while menstruating. That was until I stayed over for the first time at my then girlfriend's house. As she still lived with her parents, this meant that I was also meeting them for the first time. Picture, if you will, the following scenario. The evening was going well, the food was excellent, the wine better, and in spite of my previous fears, her parents seemed to be generally well disposed towards me. After dinner, we all played cards, and her father brought out a bottle of rather excellent brandy. Not the cheap stuff, this must have set him back a couple of £100 at least. God damn, that's some nice brandy. As the night drew to a close, we said our good nights and headed off to bed. As we headed upstairs, her mother shouted, "Remember, you can still get pregnant on your period. If that wasn't true, you wouldn't." Did a light just turn off? Or am I losing my mind? Hold on.
Oh, shit! A ghost!
One of my fluorescent bulbs is going. It's going to be a nightmare to repair. I didn't replace the one in the bathroom for about 6 months, so I was just peeing in the dark for ages. Now, I don't expect you to accept my mortifying story of anecdotal evidence as fact, so I found some information from medical professionals who knew what they're talking about to back it up. According to the American Pregnancy Association, if you have a shorter cycle, say every 21 to 24 days, that means you are ovulating earlier in the cycle. Because sperm can live inside you for up to 5 days, you could have sex toward the end of your period and then conceive 4 or 5 days later with your early ovulation. And there you go, kids. There is never a time not to play it safe. You absolutely must drink 8 glasses of water every day. No, I know this one's nonsense. You should drink the amount of water that you need to drink. Like, your body will tell you when you're thirsty. You'll feel this thing called thirst, and then you could drink. I've got a slight headache right now. It's probably because I'm not drinking enough today and I am slightly thirsty. So after this, I'm going to drink some water. I'll probably forget and just end up drinking more coffee. And I've already had like 6 or 7 cups today.
You may already be dead.
I'm not for a single second suggesting that water consumption isn't important. If you don't believe me, stop drinking it for a few days and see what happens. However, the idea bandied about by health enthusiasts everywhere is that if you don't drink at least 2.5 liters of water every day, then you are endangering your health. But it's simply not true. Fuck me, 2.5 liters? That's a lot of water. Americans, that's like 5 pints. As animals go, we're fairly inefficient when it comes to our use of water, but how much water each individual needs on a daily basis varies greatly. Obviously, someone who frequently runs marathons in the desert is going to need a lot more water than someone who sits on the backside all day writing scripts in an air-conditioned office. Yes, my need for food is like, especially now, I used to walk to work or take the tram to work. And now I live slightly further away, so I drive to work. And my amount of physical movement in the day is shockingly low. Like, I think my steps drop to like 3,000 steps a day, which is probably just me walking to the car, walking from the car to the office, and then walking to the front door when the man delivers my lunch. That's it.
So you're dead, now what?
So where does this arbitrary 8 glasses or 2.5 liters of water a day come from? Well, from what I have been able to ascertain, it appears to have come from a 1945 report by the US Board of Food and Nutrition. There are 2 problems with this as far as I can tell. Firstly, the recommendation does not appear to have had any evidence to support it, and secondly, although health gurus the world over have taken this idea and run with it, the report actually goes on to say that the majority of this water is contained in the food that we eat. You gotta read the small print. Almost everything we eat contains water, and unless unless you are entirely subsisting on a diet of cream crackers, dry Weetabix, and sand, you're going to get a reasonable amount of your necessary daily intake just from eating. That's like cats, right? Cats just eat. They don't need to drink. Isn't that right? They get all the water they need from like wet food, which is kind of crazy. But also, I know cats lap up milk, so what's that about? Who knows? Let's move on. So, how can you tell if you're getting enough water? Believe it or not, and I'm fully aware that there are several medical conditions that can make the following statement untrue, the human body actually has a pretty nifty way of letting us know if it needs more water. It's thirst! While drinking 2.5 liters of water every day probably isn't bad for you, drinking too much water can actually be fatal.
I don't feel so good.
Your appendix serves no purpose. I know this one. I used to think this was true, like I think just about everybody does. But I think it does serve a purpose, or we just don't really know what it is yet. Do we know what it is yet? I do feel like that we know that it is for something. Doesn't it store like bacteria or something like that we might need at some point? Up until fairly recently, it was universally believed that your appendix, a small worm-like structure located toward the end of your digestive system, served no beneficial purpose. In fact, the only thing it ever seemed to do was occasionally become infected and endanger the life of its owner. Speaking as somebody who has had their appendix removed, I honestly can't say that I've noticed any significant changes in my day-to-day life, but I am not a medical expert. Some people who actually are medical experts disagree with my observations and claim that it does in fact play a significant role in the digestive process. According to researchers from Duke University Medical Center, the appendix does have a function. It produces and stores good microbes for the human gut. That's the bacteria I was talking about. Boom! Yes, thank you, big brain. These good microbes are often flushed out of the body when we suffer from diseases such as dysentery or cholera, thus upsetting the digestive system. This is when our appendix releases its stock of good bacteria and reboots our digestive system. Whilst all of that sounds like one of those scammy adverts for yogurts that contain good bacteria, I suppose it is possible. On balance, though, I think I shall remain a proponent of the theory that the appendix is simply a ticking time bomb that may one day kill you and should be removed as a preventative measure, particularly as my own younger brother nearly died from blood poisoning after his decided to rupture unexpectedly. That happens. I always thought it was extremely painful, and then it ruptures, and you're like, but it's really bad because then you get blood poisoning and you can die. On a related matter, you may be interested to know that if appendicitis is caught early, the appendix can be removed with keyhole surgery, which results in only a tiny scar. It's a pretty small scar anyway, isn't it, when someone has their appendix removed? Isn't it like this? Wow. As my brother Ross will attest, if you leave it too long and the appendix actually does rupture, you wind up with an awesome gnarly scar. You can't mix antibiotics with alcohol. Disclaimer, I'm absolutely not a doctor, and as such, I accept no responsibility for anything you choose to do with this information. For those of you who believe this myth, oh wait, I'm supposed to say whether I believe it or not, or whether I knew about it before. I have to say I did think you couldn't drink on antibiotics, so this one is a lose for me. For those of you who believe this myth, myself included until fairly recently, you may be familiar with the following scenario. You've been planning a night out for months. Everyone will be there. It's going to be awesome because you're now old and have children and a spouse. So that drinking when you wake up the next day, you're not entirely sure where you are, is no longer something that happens twice a week. Preach! No, that sort of fun happens once, maybe twice a year. I haven't been like that properly drunk in years. I've been like drunk, but not like how did I get home drunk? I don't think I've been how do I get home drunk in a decade. Maybe I have. I don't know. I don't remember. Literally.
Can you tell the time?
Yes. I am not drunk.
As the hugely anticipated date draws closer, you become aware of an unpleasant pain in your ear. Being determined not to miss festivities, you attempt to battle through the pain, but when an unpleasant mix of pus and blood begins to issue from your head orifice, you finally succumb and make an appointment with your doctor. After the doctor diagnoses you with a severe ear infection, he prescribes you a week-long course of antibiotics. I've been on antibiotics recently. I can't remember what for. Oh, it was a couple of years ago. I had surgery and then I was on antibiotics afterwards just in case. As this is only 2 days before your planned night out, you're forced to spend the entire evening in a state of stultifying sobriety while everybody else has an amazing time. Because as we all know, you cannot drink while taking antibiotics. I know that there are people out there who claim that it is possible to have fun when you are the only sober person in the room, but they are lying. Really, desist with this heinous deceit. If this scenario sounds familiar to you, then you will be pleased to know that should it happen again, then you can most likely get as drunk as everybody else before returning home and sleeping like a baby. Obviously, I use the term sleeping like a baby in a figurative sense to mean free of any worries rather than wetting the bed and waking up crying in the morning. I've never wet the bed from being too drunk. I have thrown up in my sleep. It's like, oh no, no, no. And then you have a good old cry. So, given that alcohol has little to no effect on the healing properties of most antibiotics, where did this myth come from? Well, there are a few interesting theories. According to an article from the BBC, it is possible that, quote, because antibiotics are used to treat some of the most common sexually transmitted diseases, doctors in the past were somehow punishing the patient for becoming infected by depriving them of their favorite tipple. The article goes on to suggest another somewhat more stomach-churning idea. James Bingham met the late Brigadier Sir Ian Fraser. Where are we going with this? Who introduced the use of penicillin for injured soldiers in North Africa during World War II. At the time, penicillin was in such short supply that after a patient had taken it, the drug was retrieved from his urine and recycled. No! Recuperating soldiers were allowed to drink beer, but unfortunately this increased the volume of their urine, making it harder to obtain the penicillin, and according to the Brigadier General, led commanding officers to ban beer. Holy shit! That's a crazy story if that's true. Although many of the commonly used antibiotics are not affected by alcohol, there are one or two that definitely are. That being said, it's always better to check with your doctor before planning a night out on the lash. Yeah, but your doctor's going to be like, well, don't drink. Because the doctors are always like, they'll give you, you know, you're in perfect health and don't drink, because that's what doctors do. They're always like, don't drink. And then it's like, how much am I allowed to drink? Well, as little as possible. The government guidelines is recommended this maximum amount. It's like half a beer a week. And you're like, who the f is having just half a beer a week? And I know it's like 3 beers a week, but still my point stands. Who's just having 3 beers a week? I went for a medical because I was getting my pilot's license. And it was such a bizarre experience. Have I told this story before? They're like, is there anything wrong with you? And I'm like, this was years ago, before there was things wrong with me. And they're like, do you take any medications? I'm like, no. Have you ever had an operation? I'm like, well, I had a tooth removed. And they're like, yeah, but there's got to be something. And I'm like, no, never had anything weird. Never anything like that. Nothing to worry about. And he's like, really? Because not many people come in here and there's nothing. Like they're trying to pry out of me some reason that I should fail the medical exam for being a pilot. And I'm like, okay. And then they're looking over the form of submission. I put like, I don't know, that I drink like a couple of drinks every day. And they're like, whoa, 2 drinks every day? And the man I'm talking to, the doctor has a beer belly out to here. And it's check, everyone drinks here. And I'm just like, yeah. And he's like, well, you know this is a medical exam for being a pilot, right? For getting a pilot's license. I'm like, yeah, I mean, what did you want me to do? Lie? And he's just like, interesting. But then he passes me anyway. It was a bizarre experience. Wait, that's the end of the episode. Sorry, that rant came right at the end, so that's where we end. I just realized the next thing is the next episode, so maybe I'll record that now. I mean, not now, you'll see it another day. Bye! £5. 2 crowns.